What's up, guys? Welcome to Daily Dose of Reddit. This is your host, Zach, and today's subreddit is r/EntitledParents. Alright, this story's called Karen Expects Total Stranger to Babysit Her Child Even After Being Told No. Update at the bottom. So, this is a weird one. Not my story, but a friend who messaged me right after it happened to vent, cause here's the cast. Karen, entitled mother, sweet kid, friend. So, Karen moved into the apartment next to friends a couple of weeks ago. Karen has struck up short, polite conversations with friend just 2 times in that period, with the second being yesterday, the day before this whole fiasco unfolded. This morning at about 9 a.m., while friend was having a nice Saturday breakfast, she gets up at around 6 a.m. on weekdays, so this was a weekend lie-in for her. Someone started aggressively banging on her front door. When friend answered, Karen was standing there with sweet kid, a 5-year-old girl who had a little backpack on. Sounding very flustered, Karen said she was sorry to have to ask this with no notice, but could friend please watch sweet kid for a few hours because Karen had somewhere really important to be. Now, something you need to understand about friend is that she can't stand kids and has no idea how to deal with them. Like, she tenses up and gets super awkward if a kid so much as waves at her in the supermarket. Friend is also disabled. She uses a motorized wheelchair sometimes and a walking cane for short distances or when she's just pottering around her own home. She lives with her girlfriend, who is also her carer. Her chronic illnesses involve fainting spells and a lot of brain fog, so by her own account, she's absolutely not someone who should be left in charge of a child. Karen has seen friend using both her wheelchair and her cane, and has seen friend's girlfriend, who was at work when this all happened, helping her in and out of their car. So friend responded with a firm no, explaining that her medical conditions meant that sweet kid would not be safe in her care and that she's not well enough at the moment to have any guests, let alone an unattended kid in her home anyway. Karen immediately flipped from pleading and simpering to hand-on-hand indignation, at this point accusing friend of faking her disabilities because, of course, if she can walk at all, then she obviously doesn't need a wheelchair, right? And threatened to report her to Centrelink welfare if friend didn't watch sweet kid for her. Never mind the fact that friend isn't on welfare. Her girlfriend has a high-paying job, and friend works somewhere between part-time and full-time hours from home most weeks. She's a goddamn machine. I don't know how she manages it. Newsflash, not all disabled people are unable to work. Although, of course, getting employers to actually hire us is another matter, cause ableism. So friend basically said, I'm not on Centrelink, and I don't appreciate being blackmailed. Find another babysitter because I am not it, and closed her door. Karen kept banging on the door for a bit, but eventually left. About 20 minutes later, a friend heard a very faint, timid tapping on her front door. She said if she hadn't been so close to it, she probably wouldn't have heard it. She sighed heavily, having kinda already guessed what was happening. She opened the door, and there was sweet kid, who had clearly been crying, clutching the shoulder straps of her little backpack. She said very softly, "Mommy said I could stay here today." Now, like I said, friend cannot stand kids, but even she said that sweet kid was an absolute darling all throughout this entire fiasco, and the most she ever did was cry because her mother is clearly a goddamn monster. Karen had driven off and sent sweet kid to friend's door, clearly thinking that if she left friend with no alternative, she'd just play along and babysit sweet kid for her anyway, especially since friend had literally no way of contacting Karen. Wrong. Friend escaped abusive parents at a young age, and this crap made her furious. She got sweet kid settled in front of the TV with a drink and some snacks Max and called the police. My neighbor just abandoned her 5-year-old daughter outside of her apartment, and the kid showed up at my door asking to come in. When the officers arrived, a friend told them the full story, and while they were appalled, she said they weren't surprised. One said, "You'd be shocked at how not rare this kind of thing is," which is honestly kind of the worst part of all this. The officers took Sweet Kid with them and were really sweet with her, explaining to her that she wasn't in any trouble and had done the right thing, and that they were there to look after her and find out where her mommy had gone. Friend found out later that they were able to contact Sweet Kid's father, who is currently working on finalizing a divorce from Karen, and was also appalled, but not remotely surprised by what she'd done. Here's hoping he gets full custody of the poor kid after all this. Update! Hey guys, thank you so much for all the awards and all of your interest in Friend's story. I messaged Friend asking if she had any updates, and whoo boy, that was an emphatic yes. Haha. This morning she had another knock on her door, only it was the dad with Sweet Kid in tow. He went there to apologize for what his ex had done, and so he and Sweet Kid could thank Friend for looking after Sweet Kid and for calling the police. She said he seemed like a good guy who was clearly putting his kid first in all this, which was really reassuring to hear. He told Friend that, according to his lawyer, her calling the police and handling everything the way she had would basically be a gift-wrapped custody battle win for him. Because what if a kind of court would ever grant Karen custody after all the crap she'd pulled? His lawyer was over the moon when the dad had called him. Friend also asked Dad, what if it had been so important that Karen had abandoned her own daughter over it? You guys ready for this? It's so goddamn cliche. It was an appointment at a nail salon. She'd brought Sweet Kid several times previously and just demanded that the staff babysit her and refused to even acknowledge the kid during her me time. When she called yesterday morning to book a last-minute appointment, cause Karen's, the staff put her foot down and told her she could no longer bring her kid to her appointments and would be refused service if she did. The dad also said that Karen had shown up so late to the appointment that they'd refused to see her anyway. Again, cause Karen's. So she abandoned her daughter cause she wanted her me time, getting her nails done. The dad told Friend that me time is an excuse Karen uses to ignore her kid, basically anytime she feels like, "Do not talk to me during my me time," etc. The dad also asked Friend if she would be okay to help with his custody battle. He said he understood that her health isn't great and that his lawyer had said a written statement would be fine. He said while it probably wasn't essential since they had the police report, he wanted to have as much evidence on his side as possible, just to be sure. Of course, Friend agreed. Karen hasn't yet showed up at Friend's door to scream at her, so Friend's thinking maybe dealing with the police put some actual fear of consequences into her. We shall see. I will, of course, post further updates if I receive it. Damn, entitled parents need to be contained. The entitlement containment wave. It's an offshoot of the evil containment wave, developed, I believe, by Master Mutaito, who is the master of Kami Sennin, Master Roshi from Dragon Ball. Someone in R&D work on that. Get back to me. Thank you. Alright, this story's called Entitled Parents in Jail. Okay, first things first, trigger warning! This post is a bit of a rant and deals with criminals, violence, and prisons. Probably not particularly funny, to be honest. Mods, if this is too much, feel free to delete it. Background. I spent 10 years serving as a custodial corrections officer in a male high-security prison in Australia. The prison was classified as high security, but also contained residential quarters, medium security, and low security, the prison farm. I generally worked on the coalface in the high security section where things were pretty wild most of the time. This also included the detention unit, which would technically be rated as maximum security, where the prisoners were locked down 23 hours per day and remained segregated at all times. On to the meat of the story. Now, your common entitled parent is usually a first-time prisoner when they reach us. fresh from the courts and still full of their entitled rights. They are mostly in their early 20s, come from a mostly good background, have money or parents with money, and an ego like a rock star. They are also all utterly bewildered as to how this could have happened to them. They arrive in a complete state of denial, sure that this is all a mistake and they will be on the streets again in a few hours. The first shock comes when they are processed in. All their clothing and possessions are taken to be stored until release. They are strip searched, showered with lice wash, yes, really, photographed and issued prison clothing, a bed pack and hygiene kit, a prison ID card, and after medical and psych check, delivered to the reception unit. At some point during this process, they will try to lay down the law to us. You can't make me do that, take my things away, make me strip, shower, etc. And the famous, I know my rights. Newsflash, youngin', this is Australia, not the USA. Don't believe everything you see on TV. And this is where they receive the very first big shock of their entire lives. Yes, we most certainly can make you do all these things. The only difference is whether you do it voluntarily or whether 3 big officers do it to you. No, sweetie, it is not against your rights. In fact, I can show you the exact legislation where we can compel you to obey if you like. The vast majority of them crumple by now. A few choose to fight, they all lose. I suppose the thing that annoys me the most is that these kids have been allowed to get this far in life before they realize that the world does not jump to their will. It is plain that mommy and daddy never once used the word no to these entitled little craps, and now someone has been hurt and entitled parents' kitty is in jail. As a 3-year-old, it may have been tolerable, even cute, I suppose, when they threw a tantrum because they did not get their way. But as an adult, it is not, especially when he wanted someone else's property, for example, or worse still, sex from a girl, and was told no. This, parents out there, is why each and every child must learn that no means no, and they have to respect that. Visit days were particularly fun. Shell-shocked parents coming in completely devastated that their little precious was in jail, and it was all that girl's fault, don't you know? If she had just given in to him, none of this would have happened. Yes, I was actually told those words once. The other prisoners, the real hardened lifers, absolutely hated these spoiled little entitled parents. They would describe them as plastic prisoners. Obviously, it was far from uncommon for an entitled parent to try to throw his weight around and receive a few slaps for it. The smart ones learned quickly. The really entitled ones usually did not. A bit of advice, kiddies. Do not ever threaten to take legal action against crimes involved with the organized crime rings. It will considerably complicate your remaining time on this planet. So in the end, some of them learn that they are not the center of the universe and there are consequences for their actions. A few don't, and we expect to see them again soon. Occasionally, some of the parents also learn they made a mistake and step up before their child's life is completely ruined. The thing that annoys me the most is that it is entirely preventable. If they had been raised as children to understand the rights of others and their own responsibilities in society, they would never have seen the inside of a cell. As officers, we frequently acted as mentors for a lot of the prisoners we felt had a chance at becoming good citizens. I never minded doing this. In fact, I am damned proud of the ones I helped to never reoffend. I guess I just found it infuriating that I was having to teach basic lessons in manners that parents should have taught at the age of 3. Okay, rant over. Happy to answer questions. Spread the word. OP, good on you for trying helping people out. And, seeing the point of, prison and stuff is for rehabilitation as opposed to punishment. And that is admirable. Alright, this story's called Entitled Parent Leaves Entitled Kid at My Mom's Daycare Hours After Closing Multiple Times. This happened years ago, sometime between 1998 to 2002, when my mom had a home daycare out of our basement, had converted garage to a daycare. For the most, the kids were typical, mostly angels, but some issues, but nothing unusual, as they were between the ages of a few months to 8. late. She watched older kids if they had siblings there. But there was one kid who we will call Entitled Kid, who I believe was 3 or 4 when he started going to my mom's daycare. He was entitled, well, at least as much as a kid his age could be. He'd get in trouble multiple times. My mom never had used a timeout system much, and when she did, she'd put them on the couch in the TV room, which they'd obey. But Entitled Kid wouldn't, so she'd put him in one spot he couldn't escape, one of the high chairs. He'd scream almost every second in there, demanding to be let out. But it gets worse. My mom would close the daycare around 5 or 6, so she had time to make dinner for our family. Now, sometimes a parent would be a little late, traffic, or couldn't leave work right away, but wouldn't be that long. Entitled Kid's parents would occasionally not just be late, but hours late. My mom had to go upstairs to make dinner for all 6 of us, plus for my dad when he got home from work. So she had no choice but to bring Entitled Kid upstairs and watch him on the main floor. Let him watch TV, play with any toys, feed him, etc. Sometimes he'd finally be picked up at like 9 p.m. I remember one time my mom had to watch him while we were decorating our Christmas tree. It was a nightmare. This kid was known to be a troublemaker. This went on at least once a week. I don't know if his parents had an excuse or not. If they did, I don't know why they didn't have his family pick him up. Sometimes, I think, he was too much even for them and they wanted alone time, so they would be hours late for a child-free home. Another thing, they were always late on paying my mom for her service, let alone the extra hours. They'd pay later or not at all. My mom, being a Christian, never complained too much. This went on for quite a few months till one day the kids stopped coming to my mom's daycare. I don't know if she finally had enough of them being late to pay and picking up Entitled Kid, or they just stopped coming on their own. Either way, my mom, for the most part, had peace again in the daycare. Kids being kids, and the last kid leaving on time or at a reasonable time. Looking back, we both agree Entitled Kid was the nightmare child. Like I said, all the other kids were angels for the most part. My mom even talks to one of the parents still, where the kid who started when they were less than a year old is now an adult. My mom never regrets having the daycare, but of course regrets having that one kid. Yikes. I remember, I think I went to a daycare thing when I was a little kid. There was this one kid, his name was Jeremy, but I called him Jeremy because I thought that's what I thought his name was. And he really liked the Wiggles, and we'd watch the Wiggles a lot because he liked the Wiggles. I didn't like him as much. I thought they were kind of weird because I thought Jeremy was kind of weird because I thought his name was weird because I was like, Jeremy? He probably picks his nose a lot. That was why I didn't like the Wiggles that much, I guess. But anyway, the daycare lady, her son, he was like a teenager or whatever. He showed me how to like pretend to drink water, like do the sound effect. It was so cool. And like I did it everywhere. And that's how I plan on winning my presidential campaign. And it's gonna work. Believe it! Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.